The arrow struck flesh with a sound that would haunt Marcus Cole forever. A German shepherd screamed, not barked, not whined, screamed like a child being tortured. The wealthy guests in designer suits raised their champagne glasses and applauded. Victor Ashworth knocked another arrow, smiling at his bleeding target. But he made one mistake. His estate bordered a small rental house where a dishonorably discharged Navy SEAL sat in darkness with his own German shepherd. And that dog heard the cry. What happens next will shake your faith in humanity, then restore it completely. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Subscribe and stay until the end. This story will change how you see courage forever. The scream came at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday in December. Marcus Cole had been sitting in the same chair for 3 hours, staring at a wall he couldn't afford to paint. The heating bill sat unopened on the kitchen counter. The eviction notice sat beside it. His bank account held $47.16, enough for dog food or electricity, not both. Shadow lay at his feet, nose resting on Marcus's boot. The German shepherd hadn't moved in an hour, matching his owner's stillness, the way he'd matched it for 5 years across 3 continents and 1 devastating betrayal. Then Shadow's head snapped up. His ears rotated forward like satellite dishes, locking onto a signal. A growl built in his chest, low and urgent, the kind Marcus had only heard in combat zones. "What is it, boy?" Shadow was already moving, nails clicking against the worn hardwood as he bolted to the window. He pressed his nose against the glass and barked, sharp, desperate, commanding. Marcus pushed himself up, joints protesting from too many parachute landings and not enough medical care. He crossed to the window and listened. At first, nothing, just the distant thump of bass from the Ashworth estate next door, where the rich gathered to congratulate each other on being rich. Then he heard it. A dog's scream, cutting through the night like a knife through silk. Marcus's blood went cold. He knew that sound. He'd heard it once before, in a village outside Kandahar, when a Taliban commander had tortured a military working dog to draw out American soldiers. That dog had been Shadow's littermate. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no." Shadow barked again, then spun to face Marcus with an intensity that needed no translation. His eyes said everything. "Someone is hurting one of us. We have to help." Marcus grabbed his jacket and moved to the back door. His hands were shaking. Not from cold, from memory. "Stay," he told Shadow. The dog didn't move, but his eyes followed Marcus with desperate accusation. Marcus slipped out into the December night. The Ashworth estate loomed behind his property, separated by an 8-foot fence topped with decorative iron spikes. The fence was designed to keep out the poor, the uninvited, the unworthy. Marcus had scaled harder walls in Fallujah. He found a foothold in the old oak tree that straddled the property line and pulled himself up, ignoring the protest of muscles that hadn't been properly worked in months. From the top of the fence he could see the garden. What he saw stopped his heart. A German shepherd hung from a wooden frame in the center of the lawn. Ropes bound his legs, spreading him like a target. Blood matted his shoulder, where an arrow protruded from torn flesh. His head hung low, but his eyes, amber and ancient with pain, were open. Around him, men and women in evening wear stood in a loose circle, drinks in hand, faces bright with entertainment. And in the center, holding an antique bow with the casual grace of a man who had never been told no, stood Victor Ashworth. Marcus had seen Victor's face in magazines, on charity plaques, on the side of the children's hospital downtown that bore his name. 62 years old. Silver hair combed back with precision. A face that cameras loved and employees feared. Victor was saying something that made his guests laugh.
Then he drew another arrow from the quiver at his hip and knocked it with practiced ease. The dog saw it coming. He tried to twist away, but the ropes held him centered on the target. A sound escaped him. Not quite a bark, not quite a whine. Something between a plea and a prayer. Marcus's hand found his phone. His fingers moved automatically, opening the camera, hitting record. Evidence. He needed evidence. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. The arrow flew. It struck the dog's hindquarters. The scream that followed was inhuman in its agony, a sound that would echo in Marcus's nightmares for years to come. The guests applauded. A woman in a red dress laughed and raised her glass. "Magnificent form, Victor!" A man in a three-piece suit nodded approvingly. "Still the best shot in Virginia." Victor smiled the way a cat smiles at a wounded bird. "Shall we see if he can take a third?" Marcus was over the fence before he knew he was moving. His feet hit manicured grass. An instinct took over. The same instinct that had kept him alive through 6 deployments and 1 court-martial. He crossed 30 yards of lawn in seconds. "Stop!" The word came out as a command, not a request. The voice of a man who had led men into battle, who had called in airstrikes, who had held dying friends and promised them their sacrifice mattered. Victor turned, eyebrows raised in mild curiosity. The guests went silent. A woman gasped. A man muttered something about security. Marcus planted himself between the bow and the dog. Behind him, the German shepherd's breathing came in ragged gasps, each exhale a wet rattle that spoke of internal bleeding. "Put the bow down," Marcus said. Victor studied him, the way a scientist studies an interesting insect. "And you are?" "Your neighbor, the one who just called 911. It was a bluff. Marcus hadn't called anyone. His phone was still recording in his pocket, capturing everything, but help was a prayer not yet spoken. Victor's smile didn't waver. "I see." The veteran in the little house with the overgrown yard. He said veteran, the way some people say cockroach. Marcus Cole, isn't it? Dishonorably discharged for, what was it? Mental instability? The words hit like bullets. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but didn't respond. "I make it my business to know my neighbors," Victor continued. "Especially the troubled ones. You claimed your commanding officer committed war crimes, didn't you? Made quite a scene at your court-martial. Cried, I heard. In front of everyone." Someone in the crowd snickered. Marcus's hands curled into fists, but he kept his voice level. "This dog is a living creature. What you're doing is a felony." "This dog," Victor said, gesturing with the bow, "is my property. Purchased legally from a shelter that was happy to be rid of him. What I do with my property is none of your concern. You're torturing him. I'm training him. There's a difference." Victor took a step closer, close enough that Marcus could smell his cologne, something expensive that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. "Do you know what this animal is? A failed police dog, retired, useless. He served his purpose, and now he serves mine." Marcus looked at the dog, really looked. Beneath the blood and the fear, he saw the markings of a working canine, the muscle structure, the intelligent eyes, the way he held his head even now, with dignity that refused to die. "He's not useless," Marcus said. "He's a hero." Victor laughed. "Heroes. You military types love that word. Let me tell you something about heroes, Mr. Cole. They're useful until they're not. Then they're discarded, like you were." The arrow was still in Victor's hand. He twirled it between his fingers like a baton. "Now," Victor said, "you have 2 choices. You can walk back to your sad little house and pretend this never happened, in which case I might decide not to have you arrested for trespassing and harassment. Or, Victor's smile widened, Or you can keep playing the hero, and I'll destroy what's left of your life. I own judges in this county, police chiefs, a senator who owes me his career. How long do you think you'd last in prison, Mr. Cole? A dishonored soldier with PTSD and a history of making accusations against his betters? Marcus felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. Victor wasn't bluffing. Men like him never had to bluff. They simply stated facts and watched lesser men fold. Behind him, the dog whimpered. The sound was soft, almost apologetic, as if the animal was sorry for causing trouble. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw Kandahar. He saw his squad. He saw the village where his commanding officer had ordered the execution of civilians and blamed it on insurgents. He saw himself, standing alone, telling the truth no one wanted to hear. He saw the consequences. "I've been destroyed before," Marcus said quietly. "Didn't take." Victor's smile flickered. "Excuse me? You asked how long I'd last in prison. But see, Mr. Ashworth, I've already survived worse than anything you can do to me. I've been shot. I've been tortured. I've been betrayed by men I trusted with my life." Marcus met Victor's eyes, cold blue meeting tired brown. "So you can threaten all you want, but I'm not leaving this dog." For a moment, something shifted in Victor's expression. Not fear. Men like him had forgotten how to feel fear. But perhaps recognition. The acknowledgement that he'd encountered something he couldn't simply purchase or crush. Then the mask returned. "Security," Victor called, his voice cutting through the night. "Remove this trespasser." Two men in dark suits emerged from the shadows near the house. They were large in the way that discouraged questions, with faces that had delivered violence and would deliver it again without hesitation. Marcus didn't move. The first guard grabbed his arm. Marcus let him. The second guard reached for his other arm. "Easy," Marcus said. "I'm not resisting. But I'm also not leaving without that dog." "You don't have a choice," the first guard said. "Everyone has a choice. Some people just make the wrong one." The guard's grip tightened. "Mr. Ashworth, should we—" "Take him to the gate," Victor interrupted. "Make sure he understands the importance of boundaries." The guards began dragging Marcus across the lawn. He didn't fight, not yet. Fighting would give Victor legal cover, but his eyes never left the dog on the target, and his mind was already calculating distances, angles, possibilities. "Oh, and Mr. Cole," Victor called after him. Marcus looked back. Victor had raised the bow again. The arrow was nocked, the string drawn, the point aimed at the dog's head. "Thank you for the entertainment. It's so rare to meet someone who still believes in lost causes." The arrow flew. The dog's scream cut off with terrible finality. And something inside Marcus Cole, something that had been dormant since Kandahar, since the court-martial, since the day he'd stopped believing in justice, woke up. He moved. The first guard didn't see the elbow coming. It caught him in the throat, and he went down gasping, hands clutching his neck. The second guard reached for his weapon, but Marcus was faster. A palm strike to the nose, a knee to the groin, and the man crumpled. Marcus sprinted toward the target. Victor stood frozen, bow still raised, face pale with shock. Around him, guests scattered like expensive birds, their screams mixing with the chaos. Marcus reached the dog. The arrow had missed the head. It had struck the wooden frame inches from the animal's skull, a miss that spoke of either mercy or poor aim. The dog was still alive, still breathing, still looking at Marcus with eyes that held a desperate, impossible hope. "I've got you," Marcus whispered. "I've got you, buddy." His fingers found the ropes. They were tight, professional knots designed to hold. Marcus's hands worked from memory, the same hands that had diffused bombs and sutured wounds and held the dying. "Stop him!" Victor screamed. "Someone stop him!" More guards were coming. Marcus could hear their footsteps, their shouts, the crackle of radios. He had seconds, maybe less. The first rope gave way, then the second. The dog's front legs came free, and he sagged against Marcus's chest, trembling violently. "I know," Marcus said. "I know. Just hold on." The third rope. The fourth. The dog was free, but he couldn't stand. His legs buckled, and Marcus caught him, lifting him in arms that screamed with the effort. 50 pounds of wounded animal. 30 yards to the fence. A dozen guards closing in. Marcus ran. He didn't think about the odds. He didn't think about the consequences. He thought only of the dog in his arms and the promise he'd made in a whisper. "I've got you." The fence loomed ahead, 8 feet of iron and stone and everything that separated men like Victor Ashworth from men like Marcus Cole. Marcus didn't slow down. He hit the fence at full speed, using his momentum to scale the lower stones. The dog yelped as the motion jarred his wounds. Marcus's arms burned, his lungs screamed, his vision narrowed to a single point of focus. Up, over, down. He landed hard on the other side, rolling to protect the dog from the impact. Pain shot through his shoulder. Something torn, something broken, something that would hurt much worse tomorrow. If there was a tomorrow. Behind him, shouts and sirens and the sound of a gate opening. They were coming. Of course they were coming. Men like Victor didn't let prey escape. Marcus pushed himself up and staggered toward his house. Shadow was at the back door, barking frantically, scratching at the wood. "Good boy," Marcus gasped as he shouldered the door open. "Good boy, Shadow." He laid the wounded dog on the kitchen floor. The German shepherd, Rex, according to the faded tag on his blood-soaked collar, looked up at Marcus with something that might have been gratitude. Shadow pressed his nose against Rex's face, whining softly. Outside, car doors slammed. Voices shouted. Flashlight beams cut through the windows. Marcus pulled out his phone. The video was still recording. 17 minutes of evidence. Victor's words, the arrows, the screams. But evidence meant nothing if he couldn't get it out. His fingers found a number he hadn't called in 3 years. Elena Vance, investigative journalist, the only reporter who'd believed his story about Kandahar, even though she couldn't prove it. The phone rang once, twice. "Marcus?" Elena's voice was groggy with sleep and sharp with surprise. "It's almost midnight. What?" "I need your help," Marcus said. "I've got evidence of animal cruelty by Victor Ashworth, and I think he's going to kill me for it." Silence on the line. Then, "Send me everything. Now." Marcus hit send just as the front door exploded inward. 4 men in dark suits. Victor Ashworth behind them, face twisted with a rage that stripped away decades of cultivated charm. "You think you can steal from me?" Victor spat. "You think you can humiliate me in front of my guests?" Marcus stood between the men and the dogs, Shadow pressed against his leg, growling low and steady. Behind him, Rex struggled to lift his head. "I didn't steal anything," Marcus said. "I saved a dog you were torturing." "That animal is my property." "Animals aren't property. They're lives." Victor laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "You truly are insane, aren't you? This is why the military kicked you out. This is why your wife left you. This is why you live in a rotting house with nothing but a dog for company." The words found their marks like arrows. Wife left you. Marcus hadn't known Victor had dug that deep into his past. "Here's what's going to happen," Victor said. "You're going to hand over that dog and your phone. Then you're going to disappear. Leave this county, leave this state, never speak of tonight again." "And if I don't?" Victor smiled. Then I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in a cage. And your dog? He looked at Shadow with an expression that made Marcus's blood freeze. I'll add him to my collection. Marcus felt Shadow tense against his leg. The dog understood threats, even when he couldn't understand words. You're not taking my dog, Marcus said. I'm not asking. The guards moved forward, and Marcus made a decision. He dropped to one knee, putting himself at Shadow's level. Shadow, protect. The German Shepherd's training took over. He placed himself between Marcus and the advancing guards, lips peeling back to reveal teeth that had taken down terrorists and traffickers. The guards hesitated. It's a dog, Victor snapped. Deal with it. The first guard drew his weapon, a taser, 50,000 volts designed to drop a man in seconds. Shadow didn't flinch. The guard fired. The prongs flew toward Shadow's chest. Marcus moved. He caught the wires in his hand, felt the electricity surge through his body, and held on. His muscles locked, his teeth clenched, his vision went white with pain. But the prongs never reached Shadow. Marcus collapsed, convulsing, the taser still pumping voltage into his system. Shadow barked, frantic, torn between attacking the threat and protecting his fallen master. Victor stepped forward, looking down at Marcus with something approaching respect. You took a taser for a dog, he said. Remarkable. Stupid, but remarkable. Marcus couldn't respond. His body was still seizing, his thoughts scattered by the electrical storm in his nervous system. Victor crouched down, close enough that Marcus could smell that expensive cologne again. I'm going to enjoy breaking you, Victor whispered. But first, I'm going to break everything you love. Your dog, that thing you rescued, anyone who's ever shown you kindness. He stood and brushed off his pants. Take him, and the animals. The guards moved in. Shadow's bark turned into a growl, then a snarl, then a sound of pure animal rage. And somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. Victor's head snapped up. What? I called 911, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. She was small and old, barely 5 feet tall, with iron-gray hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a housekeeper's uniform and held a phone in trembling hands. Her name tag read Sarah Chen, and her eyes held decades of fear, and one crystal moment of courage. I saw everything, Sarah said. From the kitchen window. I called the police, and I sent the video to 3 news stations. Victor's face went white. I've worked for you for 15 years, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. I've watched you hurt people, animals, anyone weaker than you. I've been too afraid to speak. She looked at Marcus, still convulsing on the floor, and at Shadow, still protecting his master. But he wasn't afraid, so neither am I. The sirens grew louder. Victor looked at his guards, at Sarah, at the flashing lights now visible through the windows. This isn't over, he said to Marcus. This will never be over. Then he turned and walked out the back door, his men following like shadows. Sarah rushed to Marcus's side. Can you hear me? The ambulance is coming. Hold on. Marcus couldn't speak, but he could feel Shadow's nose pressing against his cheek, could hear Rex's labored breathing nearby, could sense that something had shifted in the universe. He'd made a stand. He'd been broken for it, but he hadn't been broken alone. And in the distance, the sirens grew louder, carrying with them the first fragile notes of justice. The hospital room smelled like bleach and broken promises. Marcus opened his eyes to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of machines. His body felt like it had been dragged behind a truck, every muscle screaming from the taser's assault. Shadow was gone. Marcus sat up so fast the IV nearly ripped from his arm. Shadow! Easy, son, easy. A police officer stood by the door. Gray hair, weathered face, the kind of tired eyes that came from 30 years of seeing humanity at its worst. His badge read, Sergeant Tom Bradley. "Where's my dog?" Marcus demanded. Animal control took both dogs. Standard procedure for... No. Marcus swung his legs off the bed. No, you don't understand. Victor Ashworth will kill them. He'll find a way to... Mr. Cole. Bradley's voice was firm, but not unkind. I need you to calm down and listen to me very carefully. Marcus forced himself to stop, to breathe, to think like the operator he'd once been, instead of the panicked civilian he'd become. I'm listening. Bradley pulled a chair close and sat down heavily. Victor Ashworth is claiming you broke into his property, assaulted his security personnel, and stole his dog. He's pressing charges for trespassing, assault, and theft. I have video evidence of what he was doing. I know. The whole internet has it. Your friend Elena Vance made sure of that. Bradley rubbed his face. Problem is, Ashworth's lawyers are already calling it a deep fake. They're saying you fabricated the whole thing to extort money from him. Marcus felt the familiar weight of injustice settling on his shoulders. The same weight he'd carried since Kandahar. And you believe them? Bradley was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed Marcus the screen. It was a photo of a young man in a police uniform, grinning at the camera with a German shepherd at his side. My son, Danny, Bradley said. He was a canine handler. Best damn cop I ever knew. His voice cracked slightly. He was killed in the line of duty 4 years ago. Shot protecting a school full of kids. Marcus looked at the photo, then at Bradley's face. That dog you rescued tonight, Bradley continued. Rex. He was Danny's partner. The world tilted. Marcus gripped the bedrail to steady himself. What? Rex took 3 bullets that day trying to save Danny. When Danny died, Rex was supposed to go to Danny's wife, but somehow he ended up at a shelter instead, and somehow Victor Ashworth bought him 6 months ago. Bradley's jaw tightened. I've been trying to find Rex ever since, and tonight you did what I couldn't. Marcus processed this information with the tactical part of his brain, the part that never fully shut off. You're helping me. I'm doing my job, Bradley said carefully, which means I need evidence that will hold up in court, not just video. Ashworth's lawyers will fight that. I need witnesses. I need a paper trail. I need to know how a hero dog ended up as target practice for a billionaire. Sarah Chen, the housekeeper who called 911. She's been working for Ashworth for 15 years. She's in protective custody, but she's scared, Cole. Ashworth has reach, and she knows it. Bradley leaned forward. I need more. I need someone on the inside who can get me documents, records, proof of how he acquired Rex, and what else he's been doing on that estate. Marcus understood what Bradley was asking, and he understood the risk. You want me to go back? I want you to think about it. Ashworth doesn't know I'm Danny's father. I transferred to this county after his death. He doesn't know you and I have talked. Right now, he thinks he's won. That makes him careless. He'll have me arrested the second I step near his property. Bradley smiled grimly. Not if you're invited. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, the door opened and a woman walked in. Elena Vance looked exactly like Marcus remembered. Sharp eyes, sharper mind, the kind of intensity that made powerful men nervous. She was in her late 40s, with cropped dark hair and a press badge that had gotten her into war zones and congressional hearings alike. You look terrible, she said to Marcus. Thanks for posting the video. 17 million views and counting. Ashworth's PR team is in full meltdown. She pulled out her tablet and showed him the screen. But here's the interesting part. After I posted your video, I got a message from someone inside Ashworth's organization. Anonymous, encrypted, but credible. Marcus read the message on the screen. Victor Ashworth isn't just torturing animals. 3 days from now, he's hosting a private event on his estate. The guests pay $100,000 each to hunt live targets, not animals. People, workers who've seen too much, women trafficked from overseas, anyone who can't fight back. I have proof, but I can't get it out alone. Help me. Marcus read it twice. His hands were shaking again, but not from the taser. This is insane. This is Victor Ashworth, Elena said. I've been investigating him for 6 years, Marcus. Every time I get close to the truth, witnesses disappear. Evidence vanishes. Sources go silent. She sat on the edge of his bed, but tonight, you did something no one else has ever done. You made him lose control in front of witnesses. You have him on video admitting he owns that dog, that he was training him. It's not enough to put him away, but it's enough to make him angry. Angry men make mistakes. Exactly. Marcus looked at Bradley, then at Elena. 2 strangers who had become allies in the space of a single night. 2 people who, like him, had reasons to want Victor Ashworth brought down. The anonymous source, Marcus said. Do you trust them? I trust the documents they sent as proof. Elena pulled up another file. Financial records showing payments to a shelter employee for special acquisitions. Receipts for medical equipment that has no business being on a private estate. And this. She showed him a photograph. It was a young woman, maybe 20 years old, with dark hair and frightened eyes. She was standing in what looked like a concrete room, wearing a white dress that was too clean, too staged. Her name is Maya Santos, Elena said. She disappeared from a bus station in Phoenix 18 months ago. Her family has been looking for her ever since. According to my source, she's being held on Ashworth's estate right now. Marcus stared at the photograph, at the fear in Maya's eyes, at the bruises visible on her arms. He thought about Shadow, locked in some animal control facility, probably terrified. He thought about Rex, who had taken bullets for a school full of children and been rewarded with arrows. He thought about the man he used to be, before Kandahar, before the betrayal, before he learned that speaking truth to power only got you crushed. What do you need me to do? Bradley and Elena exchanged a look. Ashworth is hiring new security, Bradley said. After tonight, he needs people he thinks he can trust. Your military background makes you valuable, even with the discharge. Maybe especially because of it. He'll think you're desperate, controllable. You want me to get hired by the man who just tried to have me arrested? I want you to become the man who brings him down from the inside. Marcus laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. And if he recognizes me? He won't, Elena said. Not if we change enough details. New name, new backstory, different appearance. Ashworth sees poor people as interchangeable. He won't look closely at another hired guard. And my dogs? This time, Bradley smiled. Rex is evidence in an ongoing investigation. He'll stay in my custody, personally, until this is resolved. As for Shadow, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. My daughter-in-law, Danny's wife, has a farm outside the county. Lots of space. She's been wanting a dog since Rex disappeared. Shadow will be safe there, and, more importantly, he'll be off Ashworth's radar. Marcus took the key. It was warm from Bradley's pocket, and heavier than such a small thing should be. How long do I have? The event is in 3 days. We need you inside by tomorrow night. 24 hours to transform from a target into a weapon. Marcus had done harder things in the SEALs, but he'd never done them alone. One condition, he said. When this is over, when Ashworth is in prison and everyone on that estate is safe, I want my life back. My real name cleared. My discharge reviewed.
Bradley nodded slowly. I know some people in the Pentagon. Good people. The kind who don't like cover-ups. He extended his hand. You have my word. Marcus shook it. Elena was already on her phone. I'm sending you everything I have on Ashworth's security setup. Layout, personnel, protocols. My source will contact you once you're inside. They'll be your guide. Who is this source? Elena hesitated. Someone who's been trapped in that house for a very long time. Someone who's finally found the courage to fight back. Marcus thought of Sarah Chen, the elderly housekeeper who had called 911, who had spent 15 years watching evil happen and finally decided to stop it. Courage was contagious. Fear was, too. Tonight, courage had won a small battle. The war was just beginning. 4 hours later, Marcus stood in front of a bathroom mirror he didn't recognize. His beard was gone. His hair was shorter, bleached lighter at the tips. Contact lenses had changed his brown eyes to gray. A small scar on his cheek, courtesy of Elena's theatrical makeup kit, aged him in a way that altered his whole appearance. He looked like a different man, harder, colder, the kind of man who would work for Victor Ashworth. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Gate code is 7749. Ask for Drake. Tell him Vince sent you. Good luck. Marcus memorized the code, then deleted the message. He checked his new identity documents one more time. Michael Torres, former Army Ranger, security consultant. No family, no ties, no one who would miss him if he disappeared. The perfect ghost. He walked out of the motel room and climbed into a truck Elena had arranged. It was old, anonymous, the kind of vehicle that didn't attract attention. The drive to Ashworth's estate took 15 minutes. The gate loomed ahead, iron and stone and wealth made visible. Marcus entered the code. The gate swung open. He drove up the long driveway, past manicured lawns that cost more to maintain than his annual rent. Past fountains that ran with water while families across the country couldn't afford their bills. Past statues of angels that guarded a demon's lair. The main house rose before him, white columns and gleaming windows, and the false promise of civilization. A man met him at the front steps. He was tall, broad, with a shaved head and eyes that had seen violence and learned to enjoy it. A mercenary's posture, a killer's hands. You Torres? Marcus nodded. Vince sent me. The man studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. I'm Drake, head of security. You served? Rangers, 6 years. See combat? 3 deployments, Afghanistan and Iraq. Why'd you leave? Marcus let bitterness creep into his voice. It wasn't hard. He had plenty to spare. Asked too many questions, learned too many answers. You know how it goes. Drake's smile warmed slightly. A fellow cynic, a fellow discarded weapon. I know exactly how it goes. He clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Come on, I'll show you around. Mr. Ashworth likes his security team to understand exactly what they're protecting. They walked through the house, and Marcus cataloged everything. Cameras in every hallway. Guards at every door. A security system that would take a team of experts to crack. But also weak points, blind spots, patterns that could be exploited. His SEAL training had never fully left him. It was waiting, dormant, ready to activate when needed. Drake led him to a door at the end of a long corridor. This is Mr. Ashworth's private wing. No one enters without his explicit permission. Not the maids, not the chef, not even me. What's in there? Drake's expression flickered. Something that might have been discussed, quickly suppressed. Things you don't ask about. Things you don't see. Things that don't exist if anyone asks. Marcus filed that information away. The private wing,
Whatever Ashworth was hiding, it was behind that door. Got it. Good. Drake handed him a radio and a key card. You're on night shift tonight. 12 to 8. Patrol the grounds, check the fences, report anything unusual. Questions? Just one. The thing last night. The guy who broke in. What happened to him? Drake's jaw tightened. He's being handled. Mr. Ashworth doesn't tolerate interference in his affairs. He paused. Why do you ask? Marcus shrugged. Just want to know what I'm getting into. Seems like this job might get interesting. You have no idea. Drake's smile returned, darker now. Welcome to the estate, Torres. Try not to get yourself killed. He walked away, leaving Marcus alone in the corridor. Marcus waited until the footsteps faded. Then he pulled out his phone, a burner, untraceable, and sent a single message to Elena. Inside, beginning reconnaissance. Will report at midnight. The phone buzzed with a reply. Be careful. Ashworth knows someone helped Cole escape last night. He's looking for traitors. Marcus deleted the conversation and pocketed the phone. Traitors. That word had followed him since Kandahar, since he'd told the truth about his commanding officer and been punished for it. The military had called him a traitor for refusing to stay silent about war crimes. Ashworth would call him a traitor for trying to expose worse. Maybe being a traitor wasn't the worst thing a man could be. Maybe it was the only thing worth being. His first patrol began at midnight. The estate was quiet, the party guests long gone, the evidence of last night's horror carefully cleaned away. But Marcus could still hear echoes of Rex's screams in the silence, could still feel the dog's blood on his hands. He walked the perimeter, noting guard positions, camera angles, fence vulnerabilities. His mind built a tactical map that grew more detailed with every step. At 2 a.m., he found the kennels. They were behind the main house, hidden by carefully planted hedges. The building looked clean from the outside. White walls, tiled roof, the appearance of proper animal care. But the sounds coming from inside told a different story. Dogs whimpering, metal scraping, the low murmur of someone speaking in a language Marcus didn't recognize. He approached the door. It was locked, but his keycard worked. The lock clicked open. Marcus stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Blood and fear and despair, concentrated in a space too small for so much suffering. Cages lined the walls, each containing a dog in various states of injury. Some were missing legs. Others had scars from what looked like electrical burns. One, a small pit bull mix, had no eyes. At the back of the room, a man in a white coat was bent over a metal table. A dog lay strapped to it, unconscious or worse. The man held something that looked like a modified cattle prod. "What are you doing?" The man spun around. He was older, maybe 60, with thin gray hair and glasses that magnified his startled eyes. "Who are you? This area is restricted." "I'm new security. Torres." Marcus kept his voice flat, professional. Drake didn't mention there was someone working down here at night. The man's fear faded into irritation. "I'm Dr. Werner. I conduct research for Mr. Ashworth. Private research. Now get out before I report you." Research. Marcus looked at the dog on the table, at the wounds visible through its matted fur. What kind of research requires torturing animals? Werner's face hardened. "The kind that's none of your business. Mr. Ashworth pays me very well to answer questions and not ask them. I suggest you adopt the same policy." Marcus wanted to grab the man by the throat, wanted to demand answers, wanted to release every dog in this building and burn it to the ground. But he was undercover. He was a ghost, and ghost didn't make scenes. "My mistake," he said. "I'll leave you to your work." He turned and walked out, every step an act of control. Behind him, he heard Werner mutter something in German, then the buzz of the cattle prod activating. Outside, Marcus leaned against the building and forced himself to breathe. In. Out. In. Out. The kennel was just the beginning. Whatever Ashworth was doing on this estate, it went far beyond one tortured police dog. 3 days until the hunt. 3 days to find the evidence. 3 days to save everyone still trapped inside this beautiful prison. Marcus resumed his patrol, his mind already calculating the next steps. He would find the anonymous source. He would get into Ashworth's private wing. He would document everything. And then, when the time was right, he would burn Victor Ashworth's empire to ashes. At 4 a.m., his phone buzzed with a message from a number he didn't recognize. "Meet me in the garden shed at 6. Come alone. I have what you need. The source." Marcus deleted the message and kept walking, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. 2 hours until dawn. 2 hours until everything changed. Behind him, the dogs in the kennel began to howl, a chorus of the damned, singing their pain into the uncaring night. The garden shed stood at the far edge of the estate, half hidden by overgrown hedges that no one had bothered to trim. Marcus arrived at 5:55 a.m., his hand resting on the knife concealed beneath his jacket. 5 minutes of silence. Then the door creaked open. A woman stepped out. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, and eyes that held the particular emptiness of someone who had stopped expecting rescue long ago. "You're the new guard," she said, not a question. "You're the source." She didn't confirm or deny. Instead, she held out a USB drive, small, black, ordinary-looking. "Everything is on here. Financial records, video footage, names of buyers for the hunt, locations where they dumped the bodies afterward." Her voice was flat, mechanical, reciting horrors like a grocery list. "There's also a map of the private wing, the rooms, the cameras, the blind spots." Marcus took the drive. "Who are you?" "My name is Carmen. I've been Mr. Ashworth's personal assistant for 3 years." A ghost of something, anger maybe, or despair, flickered across her face. "Before that, I was one of his acquisitions." The word hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Acquisitions. "You were trafficked." "I was 17 when his people found me at a bus station in El Paso. I thought I was going to a modeling job in New York." Carmen's laugh was brittle. "Stupid, right? But I was hungry and desperate, and someone offered me a way out. That's how they get you." Marcus had seen trafficking victims before, in Afghanistan and Iraq, had helped rescue some, had been too late for others. The guilt never faded. "Why haven't you run?" Carmen looked at him with something approaching pity. "Run where? He has my mother's address in Guatemala, my little brother's school schedule, my cousin's workplace." She shook her head. "I tried to escape once, 2 years ago. The next day, my mother's house burned down. My brother was inside. He survived, but barely. 3rd-degree burns on 40% of his body. God. God has nothing to do with this place." Carmen stepped closer, her voice dropping. "But you're different. I've been watching the new hires for months, looking for someone who might actually be willing to fight. When I saw your file, I knew." "My file says I'm Michael Torres, disgraced ranger." "Your file says that, but I recognized your face from the video last night. The man who saved Rex." For the first time, something warm entered her eyes. "I watched you take a taser to protect your dog. That's when I knew you were the one I'd been waiting for." Marcus processed this. His cover was blown before it even started, at least with Carmen. "Does anyone else know?" "No, and they won't.
as long as you do exactly what I tell you." Carmen glanced toward the main house. "The hunt is in 2 days. Ashworth has been planning it for months. 20 guests, each paying $100,000 for the privilege of hunting human prey. The victims are kept in the basement of the private wing, 7 of them, including Maya Santos." "I've seen her photo." "She's 19 years old. Ashworth has been saving her for himself." Carmen's jaw tightened. The night of the hunt, he plans to release her last. He wants the other hunters to wear her down before he makes the final kill. Marcus felt rage building in his chest, a cold, controlled fury that he hadn't felt since Kandahar. The kind of rage that didn't explode. It waited. It planned. It destroyed. "How do I get into the private wing?" "You don't, not directly." Carmen pulled out her phone and showed him a schematic. "But there's a service tunnel that runs from the kennels to the basement. It's how they move the victims without the regular staff seeing. The entrance is behind the 3rd cage on the left. There's a hidden panel." Marcus memorized the layout. "Security?" 2 guards at the main entrance to the private wing. 1 guard in the basement, rotating every 4 hours. Cameras everywhere except the tunnel. Ashworth doesn't want any footage of what happens down there. "What about Drake?" Carmen's expression hardened. "Drake is the most dangerous man on this estate. Former Special Forces, discharged for excessive violence during interrogations. Ashworth hired him specifically because he enjoys hurting people." She paused. "But he has a weakness." "Which is?" "His daughter, Lily. She's 12 years old and dying of leukemia. Ashworth pays for her treatment at Johns Hopkins, the best doctors, the most experimental procedures. Drake would burn the world to save her." Carmen met Marcus's eyes. "Including you." Marcus understood the implication. Drake wasn't evil by nature. He was evil by necessity. A father who had made a deal with the devil to keep his child alive. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it explained it. "Can Drake be turned?" "I don't know. I've tried to talk to him, but he won't listen. He's convinced himself that loyalty to Ashworth is the only way to save Lily." Carmen shook her head. "Maybe he's right. Maybe there's no other option for a man like him." "There's always another option." "Is there?" Carmen's voice cracked for the first time. "Because I've been looking for one for 3 years, and all I've found is more ways to die." Marcus reached out and gripped her shoulder. "I'm going to get you out of here. All of you. I promise." "Don't." Carmen pulled away, her walls snapping back into place. "Don't make promises you can't keep. Just get the evidence to the right people and let the system do its job." "The system failed me once. I'm not trusting it again." "Then what's your plan?" Marcus thought about Bradley, waiting for evidence. About Elena, building a case. About Shadow, safe on a farm somewhere. And Rex, recovering from wounds that should never have been inflicted. "The night of the hunt," he said. "When Ashworth's guards are distracted with the guests, I'm going to get into that basement. I'm going to free the victims. And then I'm going to make sure Victor Ashworth never hurts anyone again." Carmen stared at him. "That's suicide." "Maybe, but it's also the only thing worth doing." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Carmen nodded slowly. "The service tunnel entrance requires a key code. It changes every 12 hours. She typed something on her phone, and Marcus felt his burner buzz. "I'll send you each new code as it updates, and I'll try to get you access to the security rotation schedule." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just finish what you started." Carmen turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Doctor." "Werner, the man you met in the kennels last night. He's not just experimenting on animals." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "The dogs are practice. Werner is developing techniques for Ashworth. Techniques for breaking people faster, more efficiently. Some of the victims in the basement. She couldn't finish the sentence. Just be careful around him. He has no conscience and no fear. Ashworth is the only person he answers to. She slipped back into the shadows, and Marcus was alone. The sun was rising over the estate, painting the manicured lawns in shades of gold and rose. It looked like paradise. It was hell. Marcus made his way back toward the main house, his mind racing through possibilities. 2 days until the hunt. 2 days to build a plan that had any chance of success. He needed more information. He needed allies. He needed a miracle. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Ashworth held a press conference this morning. He's claiming you're a mentally ill veteran who fabricated the video to extort money. The police have issued a warrant for your arrest. Marcus felt the walls closing in. His cover identity might protect him here, but out there, in the real world, Marcus Cole was now a wanted man. He typed back, "Can you get Bradley to hold off?" The reply came seconds later. "He's trying, but Ashworth has powerful friends. The DA is under pressure to make this go away quickly. You need to get that evidence out now." Marcus looked down at the USB drive in his pocket. Everything Carmen had gathered. Everything that could bring Ashworth down. But if he transmitted it now, Ashworth's people would detect the signal. The estate had sophisticated monitoring. Elena had warned him about that. Any data leaving the property would be flagged immediately. He had to get the drive out physically, which meant he had to leave the estate, which meant blowing his cover. Marcus weighed the options. Every scenario ended badly. Every path led to sacrifice. Then his phone buzzed again. A different number this time, one he didn't recognize. "I know who you are, Torres. Or should I say, Cole." Marcus's blood went cold. "Meet me in the wine cellar at noon. Come alone. We should talk." The message was signed with a single letter. D. Drake. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he deleted the conversation and kept walking. 4 hours until noon. 4 hours to decide whether to run or fight. 4 hours to figure out if Drake wanted to kill him or help him. The morning passed in a haze of routine. Marcus completed his patrol, reported to the security office, ate a tasteless breakfast in the staff cafeteria. Every face around him was a potential enemy. Every conversation, a possible trap. At 11:45, he made his way to the wine cellar. The door was unlocked. The stairs descended into darkness. Marcus drew his knife and started down. Drake was waiting at the bottom, sitting on a wine barrel with a glass of something expensive in his hand. He looked relaxed, almost casual, which made him more dangerous, not less. "Close the door," Drake said. "We have privacy here. No cameras, no microphones. Ashworth uses this place for sensitive conversations." Marcus closed the door, but kept his knife visible. "You know who I am. I've known since the moment you walked through the gate. Your disguise is good, but your movements give you away. You walk like a seal. You scan rooms like you're looking for threats. You held that knife correctly the moment you entered. Blade down, guard up." Drake took a sip of wine. "I was Special Forces for 15 years. I know my own kind." "Then why haven't you turned me in?" "Because I haven't decided if you're more useful to me alive or dead." Marcus kept his voice level. "And what would make me useful alive?" Drake set down his glass and looked at Marcus with eyes that had seen too much darkness. "My daughter is dying. You probably know that already. Carmen tells you everything, doesn't she?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Ashworth pays for Lily's treatment. The best doctors in the world. Experimental therapies that cost more than most people make in a lifetime. Without his money, she dies.
It's that simple. There are other ways to pay for medical care, are there? Drake laughed bitterly. I have a dishonorable discharge and a reputation for violence. No legitimate employer will touch me. No insurance company will cover her. Ashworth is the only option I have, and he knows it. That's why he hired me. So you're trapped. We're all trapped. The difference is that I've accepted it. Drake leaned forward. But lately, I've started wondering if acceptance is just another word for cowardice. Marcus felt something shift in the conversation, a door opening that hadn't been opened before. What changed? Rex. Drake's jaw tightened. I was there the night Ashworth bought him. I watched them drag a police dog, a hero dog, into a cage. I told myself it wasn't my problem. I told myself I had to focus on Lily. I told myself... He trailed off. I told myself a lot of things. And then I showed up. And then you showed up. A man with nothing left to lose, willing to take a taser for a dog he'd never even met, willing to fight for something that had nothing to do with money or power or survival. Drake finished his wine. You made me feel ashamed. I haven't felt ashamed in years. Marcus lowered his knife slightly. Not all the way. Drake was still dangerous, but slightly. What do you want? I want my daughter to live, and I want to stop feeling like a monster every time I look in the mirror. Drake stood. The hunt is in 2 days. Ashworth has been planning it for months, and nothing is going to stop it from happening. But what happens after? That's still in play. What are you proposing? I'll give you access to the private wing. I'll make sure the security rotation has gaps you can exploit. I'll even help you get the victims out when the time comes. Drake stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could see the desperation behind his calm facade. But I need something in return. Name it. The evidence Carmen gave you. I want a copy. And I want your word that when this is over, my daughter's medical records will disappear. That no one will connect her treatment to Ashworth's money. Drake's voice cracked. She's 12 years old. She doesn't deserve to be punished for what I've done. Marcus considered the request. It was a compromise, letting Drake escape consequences for his crimes. But it was also an opportunity, gaining an ally inside Ashworth's inner circle. How do I know you won't betray me? You don't. But I'll tell you something that proves I'm serious. Drake took a breath. The hunt isn't just about entertainment. It's a recruitment event. Every guest who participates becomes compromised, complicit in murder. Ashworth uses the footage as leverage. Judges, politicians, business leaders, they all do what he wants because he has video of them hunting human beings. He's building a network. He's building an empire, and the hunt is how he expands it. Drake met Marcus's eyes. I've helped him do this 6 times. 63 victims. I know where every body is buried, literally. That knowledge is worth more than anything Carmen can give you. Marcus understood what Drake was offering. Not just an alliance, but testimony. A witness who could corroborate everything and expose not just Ashworth, but everyone he had compromised. If you testify, you go to prison. I know. You might never see your daughter again. I know that too. Drake's voice hardened with resolve. But maybe she'll be proud of who I became at the end. Maybe that matters more than being there. Marcus extended his hand. Deal. Drake shook it. His grip was strong, his palm calloused from years of violence. But his eyes held something Marcus hadn't expected to see. Hope. The hunt starts at midnight, 2 days from now, Drake said. Ashworth releases the first victim at 12:30. The guests spread out across the estate grounds, and the security team monitors everything from the command center. That's when the basement will be most vulnerable. How many guards? 1 in the basement, 2 in the private wing. Everyone else will be outside, managing the hunt. Drake pulled out a key card and handed it to Marcus. This will get you past the first door. Carmen's codes will get you the rest of the way. Marcus pocketed the card.
What about Werner?
Drake's expression darkened. Werner is Ashworth's insurance policy. If anything goes wrong, if anyone tries to expose him, Werner has orders to eliminate all evidence. That includes the victims in the basement. He'd kill them. He'd do worse than kill them. Werner enjoys his work. Drake checked his watch. I have to go. Ashworth has a meeting in 20 minutes, and he expects me there. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. One more thing. Carmen is braver than you know, but she's also fragile. She's been holding everything together with willpower and rage for 3 years. If she breaks, she won't. Not if I can help it. Drake nodded once, then climbed the stairs and disappeared. Marcus waited 5 minutes, then followed. His mind was racing, reorganizing plans, calculating new possibilities. Drake's alliance changed everything. But it also added a new variable. A man whose loyalty was conditional on his daughter's safety. If anything threatened Lily, Drake would turn on him without hesitation. Marcus had to make sure that never happened. The rest of the day passed in a blur of surveillance and preparation. Marcus used Drake's keycard to explore areas of the estate he hadn't been able to access before. He memorized camera positions, guard schedules, escape routes. He also made contact with Elena, using a burner phone during a bathroom break. I have an ally inside, he told her quietly. Drake, Ashworth's head of security. Silence on the line. Then, are you sure you can trust him? No, but I don't have a choice. What do you need? The night of the hunt, I need emergency services standing by. Police, ambulances, FBI, everyone you can mobilize. When I get those victims out, there needs to be somewhere safe to take them. Bradley's already working on it. He's got a federal task force on standby, but they need probable cause to move in. They'll have it. I'm going to stream the hunt live. Another silence. That's insane. If Ashworth catches you, then the world will see what he really is. Either way, he loses. Elena exhaled slowly. You've changed since Kandahar, Marcus. No, I've just stopped being afraid to lose. He ended the call and returned to his patrol. That night he visited the kennels one more time. The dogs were quieter now, either broken or sedated. But one of them, a young shepherd mix in the back corner, lifted his head when Marcus approached. Hey, buddy, Marcus whispered. You hang in there. Help is coming. The dog's tail wagged weakly. Once. Twice. It was enough. Marcus made his way back to his quarters and lay down on the narrow cot. Sleep wouldn't come, not with everything that waited in the darkness. But rest was possible. Even soldiers learned to rest before battle. In 36 hours, the hunt would begin, and Victor Ashworth's reign of terror would end, one way or another. The night arrived, wrapped in silence and the smell of expensive cologne. Marcus watched from his position near the east gate as limousines rolled through one by one. 20 vehicles, 20 hunters, 20 monsters who had paid $100,000 for the privilege of murdering another human being. His earpiece crackled. Drake's voice, low and steady. Guests are assembling in the main hall. Ashworth is giving his welcome speech. You have approximately 45 minutes before the hunt begins. Copy that. Marcus moved through the shadows toward the kennels. Carmen's latest code was already memorized. 739218. The service tunnel entrance waited behind the third cage on the left. He reached the kennel door and paused. Something felt wrong. The dogs were silent. Not sleeping silent. Not sedated silent. The kind of silent that came after screaming stopped. Marcus pushed open the door. Dr. Werner stood in the center of the room, his white coat splattered with blood. Around him, every cage was open. Every cage was empty, except for the bodies. "Ah, Mr. Torres, or should I say, Mr. Cole?" Werner smiled, his glasses reflecting the fluorescent lights. "I wondered when you would come." Marcus's hand moved toward his knife, but two guards stepped out from behind the cages. Their weapons were already drawn.
Did you really think we didn't know?
Werner removed his glasses and cleaned them with a handkerchief. "Mr. Ashworth has cameras everywhere. The garden shed, the wine cellar, even the bathroom where you made your little phone calls." Marcus's blood went cold. Drake. Drake is a useful tool, but his loyalty was always conditional. When Mr. Ashworth offered to move his daughter to a better facility, one with a 90% survival rate instead of 60, Drake made the practical choice. Werner put his glasses back on. Everyone breaks eventually. Everyone. The guards moved closer. Marcus calculated distances, angles, possibilities. 2 armed men. 1 unarmed target. No cover. No backup. Suicide odds. But surrender wasn't an option. "You killed the dogs," Marcus said, buying time. "I eliminated loose ends. The hunt is about to begin, and Mr. Ashworth wanted a clean start." Werner stepped over a body. A German shepherd who had probably been someone's partner once. Someone's family. It's actually more humane than what awaits the human participants. Quick, painless, professional. "You call this professional?" "I call this necessary." Werner's smile widened. "Now, the question is what to do with you." "Mr. Ashworth initially wanted you added to the hunt. Poetic justice," he said. "But I convinced him that your military training makes you too dangerous. The guests might actually lose." Marcus felt the guards tense behind him. Fingers on triggers, ready to fire. "So what's the alternative?" "I get to study you." Werner's eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "A Navy SEAL with PTSD, moral rigidity, and a pathological need to protect the weak. Fascinating specimen. I have theories about the neurological basis of heroism that I've never been able to test properly." Marcus's stomach turned. "You want to experiment on me?"
I want to understand you. There's a difference.
Werner gestured to the guards. "Take him to the private wing, prep room 3, and be careful, he's more dangerous than he looks." The first guard grabbed Marcus's arm. The second kept his weapon trained on Marcus's chest. They marched him out of the kennels and across the grounds. In the distance, Marcus could see the main hall glowing with light. Music and laughter drifted across the lawn, the sounds of wealthy predators celebrating before the kill. 45 minutes until the hunt began. 45 minutes until 7 innocent people were released into the darkness to be slaughtered. Marcus had to act. But how? The answer came as they approached the private wing. Carmen. She was waiting by the service entrance, dressed in a maid's uniform, her face carefully blank. But her eyes met Marcus's for a fraction of a second, and in that look, he saw everything. She knew. She was ready. She had a plan. The guards pushed Marcus through the door. He stumbled deliberately, falling to one knee. "Get up," the first guard snapped. "My leg. The taser damage from the other night." Marcus grimaced, selling the pain. "Give me a second." The guard reached down to haul him up. Marcus moved. His hand found the guard's holster. The weapon came free in one smooth motion. Marcus rolled, putting the first guard between himself and the second, and fired twice. The second guard went down. The first guard spun, reaching for his backup weapon. Marcus was faster. A strike to the throat, a knee to the groin. The guard collapsed, gasping. Carmen was already there, pulling a key card from the fallen guard's belt. "The basement," she said. "Now!" They ran. The private wing was a maze of corridors and locked doors, but Carmen knew every turn. She led Marcus through hallways he'd never seen, past rooms he didn't want to imagine, until they reached a steel door marked Storage. "The victims are through here," Carmen said. 7 of them, 6 women and 1 man. They're drugged, but conscious. "How long until someone notices the guards are missing?" 10 minutes, maybe less." Not enough time. Not nearly enough. Marcus's earpiece crackled. Drake's voice, urgent now. "Cole! Cole, can you hear me?" Marcus didn't respond.
I know you think I betrayed you, but Ashworth was going to kill my daughter. He showed me pictures, men outside her hospital room, waiting for his signal. I had to—" Drake's voice broke. "I had to protect her."
"And the 7 people in that basement? Who protects them?" Silence. Then, "I'm sending the guards away from the east exit. You have a window. 5 minutes. Take it." Marcus looked at Carmen. "You trust him?"
I trust that he hates himself right now. Sometimes that's enough." They pushed through the door.
The basement was everything Marcus had feared, and worse. Cells lined both walls, each containing a human being in various states of despair. Some sat motionless, staring at nothing. Others paced like caged animals. One woman rocked back and forth, humming a song that had no melody. Maya Santos was in the last cell. She looked smaller than her photograph, fragile in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. Her dark hair was matted, her white dress was torn, but her eyes, when they met Marcus's, held a spark that hadn't been extinguished.
"Who are you?"
she whispered. "Someone who's getting you out of here." Carmen was already working on the cell locks. One by one, the doors swung open. The prisoners stumbled out, disoriented, afraid, not quite believing this was real. "Listen to me," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and commanding. "We're going to walk out of here together. Stay close, stay quiet, and do exactly what I say. Understand?" Nods, whispers, a few tears. Marcus led them toward the east exit. Drake had promised a window. Drake had also promised not to betray him, and look how that turned out. But there was no other option. They reached the exit door. Marcus pressed his ear against it. No sound from the other side. He turned to Carmen. "Get them to the fence line. There's a gap in the southeast corner. The cameras don't cover it. Once you're through, run for the road. There should be people waiting."
"What about you?"
"I have to finish this." Carmen grabbed his arm.
"Ashworth will kill you."
"Maybe, but if I don't stop him now, he'll just rebuild. New estate, new victims, new hunt. The only way to end this is to end him." Carmen stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled him close and kissed his cheek.
"Thank you,"
she whispered.
"for everything."
She gathered the victims and slipped through the door. Marcus watched them disappear into the darkness. 7 lives saved. 7 futures reclaimed. Now came the hard part. Marcus made his way back through the private wing, moving with purpose now. No more hiding. No more pretending. He found the security command center on the 2nd floor. 2 guards inside, watching monitors that showed the hunt beginning. Guests in dark clothing, carrying weapons. Victims being released into the grounds, one by one. Marcus kicked open the door. The guards spun. Too slow. Marcus was among them before they could react. Fists and elbows and years of combat training compressed into seconds of violence. When it was over, both guards lay unconscious on the floor. Marcus sat down at the main console. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up camera feeds, security protocols, communication systems. And then he found it. The streaming server. Ashworth recorded everything.
Every hunt, every victim, every kill.
The footage was stored on encrypted servers and distributed to the guests as souvenirs and leverage. But the system also had a broadcast function, a way to stream live to any platform in the world. Marcus started typing. The feed went live on 17 different platforms simultaneously. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, every major news network's emergency broadcast channel. Within seconds, millions of people were watching Victor Ashworth's private hunting ground.
Marcus spoke into the console microphone. "My name is Marcus Cole. I'm a former Navy SEAL, and I'm currently inside the Ashworth estate in Virginia. What you're about to see is a live hunt. Wealthy individuals paying to murder innocent human beings for sport. This is not a hoax. This is not a drill. This is happening right now." He switched to an external camera. On the screen, a figure in hunting gear raised a rifle, tracking movement in the tree line. The world watched. Marcus's phone buzzed. Elena's voice, breathless with urgency.
"It's everywhere. Every news channel, every social media platform. The FBI is mobilizing. Bradley has units en route."
"How long?"
20 minutes, maybe 15 if they push."
Too long. The hunt had already begun. People were dying. Marcus grabbed a weapon from one of the unconscious guards and headed for the door. Time to hunt the hunters. The grounds had transformed into a nightmare playground. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Gunshots echoed. Screams rose and fell like waves. Marcus moved through the chaos like a ghost. His training took over. Assess, advance, eliminate. Every hunter he found became a hunter no longer. Some he disarmed. Some he disabled. A few he left unconscious in the grass. He didn't kill anyone. That wasn't who he was. That wasn't who he wanted to be. But he came close. The third hunter he encountered was a woman in her 50s, pearls around her neck, a designer rifle in her hands. She was standing over a body, a young man, early 20s, bleeding from a wound in his leg.
"Please,"
the young man begged.
"Please, I have a family."
The woman laughed. "So do I, sweetie. They're very proud of me." She raised the rifle. Marcus hit her from behind. The weapon discharged harmlessly into the air. The woman went down, and Marcus was on top of her, zip-tying her wrists before she could recover. Who are you?" she sputtered. "I'm the one they should have warned you about." He helped the young man to his feet. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Then walk. East. There's a gap in the fence. People are waiting to help." The young man limped away. Marcus kept moving. He found Drake near the center of the grounds, standing alone, weapon at his side. Around him, the hunt continued. But Drake wasn't participating. He was watching. Waiting. "Cole." Drake's voice was hollow. "I didn't know what else to do." "You made a choice." "I made the only choice. My daughter. Is she worth 7 lives? 63 lives?" Marcus stepped closer. "Is she worth your soul?" Drake flinched. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You love your daughter. I respect that. But love isn't an excuse for everything." Marcus looked at the chaos around them. "The FBI is coming. 20 minutes, maybe less. You can run, or you can help me stop this." "What happens if I help?" "I don't know. Maybe prison. Maybe worse." Marcus met Drake's eyes. "But maybe, when your daughter grows up, she'll know her father tried to make things right. Maybe that matters more than treatment centers and survival rates." Drake stood frozen for an eternity, compressed into seconds. Then he raised his radio. "All units, this is Drake. Stand down immediately. I repeat, stand down. The operation is compromised." Static. Confusion. Then a voice Marcus recognized. Victor Ashworth. "Drake, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "What I should have done years ago."
Drake threw the radio to the ground. Let's finish this. They moved together through the grounds, two soldiers on the same side for the first time. Hunters who resisted were neutralized.
Victims who could walk were directed toward the fence. Those who couldn't were carried. The world watched through Marcus's live stream. Millions of eyes witnessing the fall of an empire. And then they found Ashworth. He was standing in the garden where it had all begun, where Rex had hung from that wooden frame, where Marcus had made the decision that changed everything. In his hands, he held an antique bow. At his feet, kneeling in the grass, was Maya Santos. Her wrists were bound. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes, when they met Marcus's, held no fear, only defiance. "Stop there!" Ashworth called out. His voice was steady, controlled, even now. "Come any closer, and I'll put an arrow through her heart." Marcus and Drake halted, 20 feet away, too far to rush, too close to retreat. "It's over, Victor," Marcus said. "The FBI is on their way. Your guests are being arrested as we speak. The whole world is watching." "Let them watch." Ashworth smiled his predator smile. "I've survived worse than bad publicity. Lawyers, PR firms, strategically placed donations. I'll be back on the charity circuit within a year. Not this time. We have everything. Financial records, witness testimony, video evidence. You're finished." Something flickered in Ashworth's eyes, the first crack in his armor. "Then I have nothing to lose." He drew back the bowstring, the arrow aimed at Maya's chest. And neither does she. Marcus's mind raced through options. Charge and risk Maya's life. Wait and risk the same. Talk and hope for a miracle. Then Drake stepped forward. "Victor, wait." Ashworth's aim shifted slightly. "Drake, I should have known you'd turn on me eventually. Everyone does." "I'm not turning on you. I'm trying to save you." Drake's voice was calm, persuasive. "Think about this. If you kill her on camera, in front of the whole world, there's no recovery. No lawyers, no PR, nothing. But if you put down the bow, surrender peacefully—" "Surrender?" Ashworth laughed. "I don't surrender. I've never surrendered in my life." "There's a first time for everything." Drake took another step forward. Then another. Ashworth's bow tracked toward him. "Stay back. I'm warning you. You won't shoot me, Victor. You need me. Who else knows where the bodies are buried? Who else can manage your security network? Who else?" The arrow flew. It caught Drake in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell hard, blood spreading across his jacket. Marcus moved. He closed the distance in 3 strides. Ashworth reached for another arrow, but Marcus was faster. His fist connected with Ashworth's jaw. The bow flew from his hands. They went down together, rolling across grass that had seen too much violence. Ashworth fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. His fingers found Marcus's throat, squeezing with surprising strength. Marcus's vision began to tunnel. "You should have stayed in your little house," Ashworth hissed. "Should have kept your head down like everyone else. Now you're going to die in my garden, and no one will remember your name." Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't fight. Then he heard it, barking. Not one dog, 2. Shadow burst through the hedges like a missile, Rex limping behind him. They'd escaped. They'd found him. They'd come. Shadow hit Ashworth like a freight train. The hands around Marcus's throat disappeared. Ashworth screamed as 60 pounds of German Shepherd drove him into the ground. Rex circled around, his old injuries slowing him but not stopping him. He positioned himself over Maya, shielding her with his body, teeth bared at anyone who might try to hurt her again. Marcus gasped for air, his vision clearing. He saw Shadow standing on Ashworth's chest, jaws inches from the man's throat. a growl rumbling through his entire body.
"Call him off!" Ashworth shrieked. "Call him off!"
Marcus pushed himself to his feet. He looked at Ashworth, this man who had tormented animals, enslaved humans, murdered innocents. This man who had destroyed lives for entertainment. "Shadow," Marcus said quietly. "Release." Shadow hesitated. His eyes met Marcus's, asking the question that needed no words. "Are you sure?" Marcus nodded. Shadow stepped back, but his stance remained ready. One wrong move, and he would finish what he'd started. Sirens wailed in the distance. Helicopters thundered overhead. The cavalry had arrived. Marcus knelt beside Ashworth, close enough to whisper. "You were right about one thing. I should have kept my head down. I should have stayed invisible. But you made one mistake." "What?" Ashworth spat. Marcus smiled grimly. "You heard a dog where a seal could hear. We don't let that stand." He stood and walked to Maya, gently cutting her bonds. She collapsed against him, sobbing with relief.
"It's over," Marcus murmured. "You're safe now. It's over." Behind him, FBI agents swarmed into the garden. Ashworth was pulled to his feet, handcuffed, read his rights. His protests echoed across the grounds, growing fainter as he was dragged away. Drake was being loaded onto a stretcher, paramedics working on his shoulder wound. He caught Marcus's eye and nodded once. "Thank you," the gesture said, "for everything." Marcus nodded back. Shadow pressed against his leg. Rex limped over and leaned his weight against Marcus's other side. Two dogs who had survived hell and come back for more. Two dogs who had saved his life. Marcus knelt down and wrapped his arms around both of them. "Good boys," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "You're such good boys." The helicopter circled overhead. The sirens faded as the last of the hunters were taken away. The world watched through cameras that Marcus had forgotten were still rolling. And in that moment, surrounded by the dogs who had never given up on him, Marcus Cole finally felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. The interrogation room felt smaller with every passing hour. Marcus sat across from two FBI agents who had been questioning him for 6 hours straight. His throat was raw. His body ached. But he answered every question with the same steady patience that had carried him through SEAL training and combat deployments. "Let me get this straight," Agent Morrison said, rubbing his temples. "You infiltrated the Ashworth estate under a false identity, gathered evidence of human trafficking and murder, freed 7 prisoners, and broadcast the entire operation to the world." "That's correct. And you did all this without any official authorization." "Also correct." Morrison exchanged a look with his partner, Agent Chen. "Mr. Cole, what you did could be considered vigilantism at best. At worst, we're looking at multiple felonies." Marcus leaned forward. "Agent Morrison, I spent 6 years serving this country. I watched my commanding officer murder civilians and blame it on insurgents. When I reported it, the military destroyed my career and called me crazy. So forgive me if I didn't trust the system to handle Victor Ashworth." The system let Ashworth operate for decades. Judges attended his parties. Police chiefs looked the other way. "A United States senator is currently in federal custody because of what I exposed." Marcus's voice hardened. "Don't talk to me about the system." Silence filled the room. Then the door opened, and a woman walked in. She was in her 60s, silver hair cropped short, with eyes that had seen more classified documents than most people knew existed. "I'm Director Hayes," she said. "FBI. You two are dismissed." Morrison and Chen looked startled, but they gathered their files and left without argument. Director Hayes sat down across from Marcus. She didn't speak immediately,
just studied him the way a chess master studies a board.
"I've read your military file," she said finally. "The real one, not the sanitized version."
Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "Then you know I was telling the truth about Kandahar."
"I know that 3 months after your discharge, your former commanding officer was quietly reassigned to a desk job. I know that 2 years after that, he died in a car accident that was ruled inconclusive. And I know that the men who testified against you at your court-martial have all received promotions that don't match their performance records."
Hayes folded her hands. "The system failed you, Mr. Cole. Catastrophically."
Is that supposed to make me feel better?
"It's supposed to explain what happens next." Hayes pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "Victor Ashworth has been charged with 17 counts of human trafficking, 12 counts of murder, conspiracy, racketeering, and enough additional charges to keep him in prison for several lifetimes. 23 of his guests are facing similar charges. The senator you mentioned is expected to resign within the week." Marcus opened the folder.
Photos, documents, a timeline of everything Ashworth had done over the past 30 years. "We've been building a case against him for 6 years, Hayes continued. "We were close, but we couldn't get the evidence we needed. His security was too tight. His connections were too powerful. And every witness we found either disappeared or recanted." She paused. "Then you came along."
"I didn't do it for the FBI."
"I know. You did it for a dog." Hayes almost smiled. "That's actually why I'm here. The Attorney General has reviewed your case. Given the circumstances, the lives you saved, the evidence you provided, the broader public interest, we're prepared to offer you full immunity from prosecution." Marcus stared at her. "Just like that?" "Not just like that. There's a condition." Hayes leaned forward. "Your military discharge. The President is prepared to order a full review, with the expectation that it will be overturned. But in exchange, we need something from you." "Which is?" "Your testimony, on the record, not just about Ashworth, but about Kandahar, about the cover-up, about everything." Marcus felt the weight of that request settle on his shoulders. For years, he'd carried the truth alone, spoken it to empty rooms, watched it be dismissed and denied. Now they wanted him to speak it again, to the whole world. "And if I refuse?" "Then you walk out of here a free man. No charges, no conditions. But the Kandahar investigation stays closed, and your discharge remains on your record." Hayes met his eyes. "This is your choice, Mr. Cole. No pressure, no coercion. Just a question. Are you willing to tell the truth one more time?" Marcus thought about Shadow, waiting in a kennel somewhere. About Rex, recovering from wounds that should have killed him. About Maya and Carmen and the other survivors who had trusted him with their lives. He thought about the man he used to be and the man he'd become, and the difference between silence and speech. "I'll testify." Hayes nodded, something like respect flickering in her eyes. "Good. Now let's talk about what happens next." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before a Senate subcommittee. The hearing room was packed. Cameras lined the walls. Every major news network carried the testimony live, and millions more watched online. Marcus spoke for 4 hours. He told them about Kandahar, about the village, the civilians, the cover-up that followed. He told them about the court-martial, the character assassination, the slow destruction of everything he'd built. And he told them about Ashworth, about Rex and the arrows, about Carmen and her courage, about Drake and his impossible choice, about 7 lives saved and 63 that should have been. When he finished, the room was silent. Senator Williams, the committee chair, cleared his throat. "Mr. Cole, I have one final question. After everything you've been through, the injustice, the betrayal, the years of being called a liar, why did you risk your life to save strangers?"
Why not just walk away? Marcus looked at the senator. Then he looked at the cameras, knowing that millions of people were waiting for his answer. Because walking away is how evil wins, he said simply. I spent 4 years walking away, keeping my head down, telling myself it wasn't my problem. And every day I did that, someone else suffered because I stayed silent. He paused. A dog taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else matters more than your fear. Shadow didn't care about the odds when he heard Rex screaming. He just knew someone was hurting, and he had to help. Marcus felt his voice catch, but he pushed through. We live in a world where powerful people can do terrible things and get away with it because everyone else is afraid. Afraid of losing their jobs, afraid of losing their reputations, afraid of losing their lives. But fear only works if we let it. The moment one person decides to stand up, everything changes. He looked directly at the camera. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who got tired of being afraid. And if I can do it, anyone can. The room erupted in applause. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the porch of a building that didn't exist a year ago. The sign above the door read, Second Watch, a sanctuary for those who served. Below it, smaller letters explained, for retired military and police canines and the veterans who need them. Shadow sat at his left side, alert and watchful as always. Rex sat at his right, his wounds healed to silver scars that told stories of courage and survival. A car pulled into the driveway. Sergeant Bradley, Tom now, climbed out, followed by his daughter-in-law Karen and a 12-year-old girl with bright eyes and no hair, Lily Drake. Her father walked behind her, moving slowly on a leg that would never fully heal from the bullet he'd taken during his arrest. Drake had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for his testimony. He'd serve 5 years, with time off for cooperation. But today wasn't about his sentence. Today was about something else.
Dad!
Lily ran to her father, wrapping her arms around him with the fierce strength of a child who had learned too young how fragile life could be. Drake held her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Because she was. I have something for you, he said, kneeling down to her level. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. A German Shepherd puppy, 8 weeks old, all ears and paws. His name is Phoenix. He's going to live at the sanctuary until I come home. But he's yours. I already filled out the paperwork. Lily's eyes filled with tears.
Really?
Really. And Mr. Cole promised to send you pictures every week. Drake looked up at Marcus. Didn't you? Marcus nodded. Every week, and visits whenever your mom can bring you. Lily hugged her father again, and for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened seemed to lift. A father and daughter, reunited by the same tragedy that had torn so many families apart. Bradley approached Marcus, his face showing emotions he was too old and too tired to hide. I can't thank you enough, he said, his voice rough. Rex, Danny would have wanted him here. Safe. Home. Marcus looked at Rex, who was watching Lily with the patient attention of a dog who had protected children before and would do so again. He earned it, Marcus said. They all did. Carmen arrived next, driving a modest sedan that was miles away from the limousines she'd once been forced to ride in. She looked different now, healthier, stronger, with a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She climbed out and stood for a moment, just looking at the sanctuary, at the dogs playing in the yard, at the veterans sitting on benches, some talking, some silent, all healing. You did it, she said to Marcus. You actually did it. We did it. All of us. Carmen shook her head. I spent 3 years being afraid. You spent 3 days changing everything. She walked up to him and took his hand. "Thank you for reminding me what courage looks like." Marcus squeezed her hand, then let go. "What's next for you?" "College. I got accepted to Georgetown. Full scholarship, courtesy of a victim advocacy fund that didn't exist until you exposed Ashworth." She smiled. "Criminal justice. I figured someone should learn how to fix the system from the inside. You'll be great at it. I learned from the best." She hugged him quickly, then walked over to meet Lily, who was already asking questions about the puppies. The afternoon passed in a blur of reunions and introductions. Survivors from the hunt came to see the sanctuary, to pet the dogs, to thank Marcus, to begin the long process of healing. Volunteers arrived to help with feeding and cleaning. Donors dropped off checks that would keep the lights on for another month, then another year. Elena showed up with a camera crew, filming a documentary that would tell the whole story. Sarah Chen came with cookies she'd baked herself, her hands steady now, her fear a distant memory. And through it all, Shadow and Rex stayed at Marcus's side, two sentinels who had seen the darkness and chosen the light. As the sun began to set, Marcus walked to the edge of the property. The fence was new, the grass was green, and somewhere in the distance a dog was barking, not in pain, but in joy. His phone buzzed, a text from Bradley. "Just got word. Your discharge has been officially overturned. Honorable. Full benefits restored. Welcome home, son." Marcus read the message 3 times. Then he put the phone away and looked up at the sky. For 4 years, he'd been defined by what he'd lost. His career, his honor, his faith in justice. Now, standing in a place he'd built with his own hands, surrounded by lives he'd helped save, he understood something that had taken too long to learn. You don't find redemption by waiting for someone to give it to you. You find it by earning it, one choice at a time, one act of courage, then another. One refusal to look away, no matter how much easier looking away would be. Shadow pressed against his leg. Rex settled at his feet. 2 dogs who had taught him more about loyalty and courage than any training manual ever could. Marcus knelt down and wrapped his arms around both of them. "We made it, boys," he whispered. "We actually made it." Shadow licked his face. Rex's tail wagged slowly, contentedly. In the distance, the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. A new day was ending. A new life was beginning. And Marcus Cole, former Navy SEAL, dishonored soldier, reluctant hero, finally understood what it meant to be whole. Maya arrived just as the last volunteers were leaving. She walked slowly, still healing, but her eyes were clear and her step was sure. "I wanted to say goodbye," she said. "I'm going home tomorrow. My family, they never stopped looking." Marcus nodded. "I'm glad you found each other." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. A wooden cross, worn smooth by years of handling. "My grandmother gave this to me when I was 7, she said. "She told me it would protect me. I held on to it through everything. The bus station, the estate, the basement. I held on to it because I believed someone would come." She pressed it into Marcus's hand. "You are the answer to my prayers, Mr. Cole. You and these dogs." Marcus tried to give it back. "I can't take this." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it." Maya closed his fingers around the cross. "Keep it here. Let it remind you of what you did, of why it mattered." She smiled through tears. "And when you doubt yourself, when the world tells you that one person can't make a difference, look at this and remember, you did." She hugged him once, quickly, then walked back to the car where her parents were waiting. They waved as they drove away, and Marcus watched until the taillights disappeared. He looked down at the cross in his hand. One person, 2 dogs, a cry in the night.
That's all it had taken to bring down an empire. The weeks turned to months. The months turned to a year. Second watch grew. More dogs arrived, some from military units, some from police departments, some from situations too terrible to describe. More veterans came too, looking for purpose, finding it in the eyes of animals who understood loss. Marcus worked from dawn to dusk, and he'd never been happier. On the anniversary of the night, everything changed. He stood in the garden, his garden now, with Shadow on one side and Rex on the other. A small crowd had gathered. Carmen, home from college for the summer. Elena, still chasing stories that mattered. Bradley and Karen and Lily, who visited every month. Even Drake was there, on supervised release, his daughter's hand in his.
"A year ago," Marcus began,
I was sitting in a dark room, feeling sorry for myself, believing the world had decided I didn't matter. He looked at the faces around him. I was wrong, not because the world changed, but because I did. Because I heard a cry I couldn't ignore. Because I made a choice that terrified me. Because 2 dogs showed me what courage really means. Shadow barked once, as if in agreement. "We can't save everyone," Marcus continued. "We can't fix everything that's broken, but we can refuse to look away. We can stand up when standing costs us something. We can be the answer to someone else's prayer, even when we've forgotten how to pray ourselves." He knelt down and put his arms around his dogs, his partners, his family, his reason for being. This sanctuary exists because of them, because Shadow heard Rex screaming and wouldn't let me ignore it. Because Rex, even after everything he suffered, still trusted that help would come. Marcus looked up at the sky, at the clouds drifting past, at the sun that kept rising no matter what happened below. They taught me that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about deciding that someone else's pain matters more than your comfort. He stood and faced the crowd. So here's what I want you to remember. The next time you hear a cry you could ignore, a person being mistreated, an animal being abused, an injustice being committed, don't walk away. Don't tell yourself it's not your problem. Don't wait for someone else to act. Marcus's voice rose, filling the garden with conviction. Be the one who answers. Be the one who stands. Be the one who refuses to let evil win because good people stayed silent. He looked at Shadow, at Rex, at the sanctuary they had built together from nothing but courage and love. That's how we change the world. Not with armies or governments or billions of dollars, with ordinary people making extraordinary choices. One cry answered, one life saved, one act of courage at a time. The crowd applauded. Carmen wiped her eyes. Lily hugged her father. Bradley saluted, military straight, the gesture of one soldier honoring another. And Marcus Cole, former SEAL, current Guardian, forever changed, smiled the first real smile he'd smiled in years. The sun set over second watch. The dogs settled in for the night. The world kept turning, full of darkness and light, cruelty and kindness, despair and hope. But in one small corner of Virginia, 7 souls who should have died were alive because one man listened when a dog cried out. And that was enough. That was everything. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe that courage still exists. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary heroes who changed the world by refusing to stay silent. And remember this: every time you choose compassion over comfort, every time you stand up when staying seated would be easier, every time you answer a cry that others ignore, you become the miracle someone else was praying for. God bless you all.